It's my pleasure to introduce Mark Goodstein, who is the newly appointed executive director of Cleantech Los Angeles, and he'll describe to you in more detail what that is. But here in Los Angeles, we've been placing a lot of effort on transforming this city into a clean tech capital. And he's really kind of a perfect guy to do it. He's a seasoned entrepreneur. He was around at the beginning of the internet explosion, I guess is the best way to say it. He started several companies. He was one of the original employees at Idea Labs, which is a famous startup kind of venture in Pasadena. I don't know how to describe it besides that, but
an incubator.
An incubator, there we go. And he founded the Automotive X Prize, and so that has given him exposure to auto manufacturing industry, government and policy, the EPA. He really has this huge, broad perspective. So we're really pleased to have Mark Goodstein here to talk to us about Cleantech LA and his vision for the future of Los Angeles. Thanks.
Can you hear me? Am I on? Yeah, I'm on. Okay, so it occurred to me a few minutes ago as I was trying to figure out what to say.
Do you have to laser pointer, Mark?
I don't.
Okay.
I have nothing to point to. It occurred to me that I'm going to break two of the maxims that I've stuck with all my life right now. Never reveal unfinished material, and late is never bad, only bad. Nobody remembers late, only bad. So I'm almost 2 months into this, leading this organization called Cleantech LA, and I'm trying to figure out, while I go on walkabout, what the organization can do. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the organization, what our mission is, and a little bit about what the aspirations are, what kind of programs we would like to do, and then take some questions if you have them. So what is Cleantech LA? Cleantech LA is a nonprofit public-private partnership with basically every major institution in the LA basin already on the board, which makes it a fairly unique organization. And there is only so far one me in team. It has been around, though, for about 3 years, and UCLA has had a very, very large part in making it what it is right now. It was started, by context, it was started as an effort to get a $500 million climate change institute that was put forth by the Public Utilities Commission of California. But economic collapse and politics got in the way, money went away, the mayor of Los Angeles convened the chancellor of UCLA, the presidents of Caltech and USC, and said, we should keep this group together. It will serve a useful purpose. And over the last few years, it has become a nonprofit, and it has been used for two specific things. One is it's got a fairly spectacular list of people who have signed up to receive emails, and every week a hot sheet goes out on things that are happening in the LA area in clean tech. And it's been trotted out of the closet every once in a while and dusted off and used as evidence of regional collaboration for the purpose of getting big government grants. So a bunch of ARA money came in recently for a smart grid demonstration lab that's being used by folks here at UCLA and JPL and so forth. So the mission of Cleantech LA is to foster the conditions that are necessary for a clean technology ecosystem to exist in the LA basin, which is, for those of you who don't know, has an economy the size of Canada, has a port that brings in half the stuff this country consumes, has universities that are not just world-class, but produce more engineers and scientists than any other region in this hemisphere. It's got the most spectacular natural resources, and yet it doesn't have a self-sustaining ecosystem. So it is a very large market for EVs. It has 12 utility-scale solar plants either under construction or in operation now. It's the largest market for clean tech companies by a long shot, and it's the second largest recipient of clean tech investment. But it still doesn't have what we would call a self-sustaining ecosystem, by which I mean when folks start companies around clean technologies, material science, biofuels, whatever. Often, they start them here and they move up north, or they move to Colorado, or they move to San Diego. So it is a parochial effort, but this region is enormous, and if it gets its act together, it can be an engine for this entire country. And so that is the very small mission that I have taken on. But I'm not going to do all this stuff. I think what I've discovered in the last couple of months as I've walked around and talked to people is that there are institutions all over this fabric of an area. And it's not a city. It's, the city of LA is one of 88 cities in the county of Los Angeles. This is a very odd governance structure. So there are institutions that are doing the right things, but they're not connecting very well. So at the end of the day, I think this organization is going to be about connecting and forming real partnerships that will do, in fact, what the last speaker was talking about, which is address the grand challenges. So it is all about, at the end of the day, commercializing these technologies, successfully getting stuff from the bench to the market. So let me tell you a few of the things that we're talking about doing. The focus areas of Cleantech LA will be around funding, around data, and around convening. So one of the things people say a lot is, what exactly is Cleantech? We don't really understand the size and scope of the market. There are secondary reports that come out and tell us how big the market is in the LA area or in the state, but they often include things like farms, organic farms. This is not what we would consider to be part of the segment. So doing a company-level survey of the clean tech industry to figure out how many companies there are, how many jobs there are, what the revenues are of this segment, and even segmenting it, because there are no SIC codes for clean tech yet, although that is being addressed by the Department of Labor now. If only to figure out how large the market is and how much of an impact it has on the area, so that policymakers can make more informed choices about supporting the industry, so that we can have better export policies, whatever the issue is. And the importance, I think, of a project like that will be in doing it the second year so that we can see delta and making that information publicly available. There are other things as well in data. For instance, funding opportunities at a federal, state, and local level, and foundations for clean technology initiatives. When people are doing technology development, whether at the universities or in labs or in industry, there are pots of money available to help take these things further, and they are non-dilutive often and for entrepreneurs. And when you're doing work on the bench and you're focused on your work, you don't often take the time to find and know what the requirements and the dates and so forth of all these funding opportunities are. So just the simple act of assembling all of them in one place, maybe annotating and categorizing them so that they're in English, and putting them on a calendar so that the dates are known, so that when you finally do pop your head up and look at the funding opportunities, the date has not already passed. So on that, it's a good dovetail to funding. In funding, what's happened in the clean tech space is that institutional investors have moved downstream. Because the valley of death is so long for most clean technologies and the capital requirements are so high, professional investors, venture capital funds, have moved to less risky investments where they can get their money in and out rapidly, which is all that matters for most venture capital. That leaves less capital at the early stage, and some of our partners, including the Department of Water and Power and the gas company, have said that they would take part in a very early stage technology advancement fund, and they're not interested in a return. This wouldn't be an equity investment. It would be grants that would fund the commercialization of technologies that are important to all of us. And this is where, for instance, the LA Cleantech Incubator comes in. They are it is an incubator. I have a desk there to make everything very confusing, but we are two separate organizations, and Fred will be here tomorrow to talk about it. In fact, I see some of the folks who are in the incubator. The purpose of the incubator is to take early stage companies and that are not ready for institutional investment yet and make them or help them become mature enough to be investable, whether by venture capital or by angels or by whatever else. And I think that will be a big deal. So the Department of Water and Power has committed funds to do this. It is up to us now to put it all together. We've talked to venture capitalists in the LA area, and they have all agreed. The ones that we've spoken to who are Cleantech investors have agreed to be on the investment committee. So this is a big deal, and it's the kind of thing we need to start connecting things. And then convening, and that's probably the most important thing. We have a lot of different efforts going on around EIR programs and mentorship programs and so forth. Those things ought to be combined. Maybe not institutionally, but there should be some sharing of these programs at some level. So Caltech, USC, UCLA, everybody has their own EIR programs. Everyone has their own mentorship programs. The FLOW program, the business plan competition, has its own mentors. These are all people who have decided they want to help bring these companies, these teams forward and make them mature. They would probably benefit from having a wider exposure. EIR programs, and I've spoken now in my walkabout with folks at all these campuses. There are desks available for executives who are the natural partners of technology entrepreneurs and are necessary for those things to be taken forward. There's a lot of gain for executives to be able to go around all the campuses and see what's available, and a lot of serendipity to be made or to be discovered. So there's that. And finally, and then I'm going to shut up and take some questions if you have any. And one other big convening program is, and this has come out in conversations with technology entrepreneurs at all these campuses and elsewhere. Why is it that these companies have left LA? It is very difficult, and everyone sings the same tune, to find the nomadic class of managers who are necessary to grow these companies. It's much easier to find them in San Francisco. It's much easier to find capital up there too. So it's just easier to give in, pick up, and move. Those managers do exist. Many of them may exist in other industries, but they are experienced managers and can be the right partners. But they might need crash courses in how Cleantech works. What is a feed-in tariff? How do these things function? And so there have been programs designed and initiated elsewhere, at BU for instance, to retrain, give a crash course in the clean tech industry to experienced managers who want to jump from a 20th century industry into a 21st century industry. These are things that we can do with very little overhead to help create what we see as a self-sustaining ecosystem. And last thing, one of the recurring themes, again, in my walkabout has been the sort of information asymmetry problem. So, I went to my first, a little more than 2 months ago, a little less than 2 months ago, we went to the ARPA-E conference in DC. And the best 2 hours of the conference, which was exciting, watching Steve Chu talk to Bill Gates was amazing. But there were 2 sessions where 4 program officers, exceedingly smart, charged with figuring out white space, charged with figuring out where the next funding opportunity for ARPA-E should be, got up and gave 5-minute presentations about what they thought were good white space. And this was on the Monday, so they were mostly engineers and scientists in the room. And they each gave 5-minute presentations, sat down, and then 400 people got up and started asking questions. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And it occurred to me, and it has since continually reoccurred, that the questions themselves are the important thing. That is, what is the white space, and what actually has market indicators attached. So giving higher signal-to-noise ratio, higher quality signal to energy entrepreneurs to take what they know how to do and how to apply that to the market in a way that they can do it without having to pivot, which is kind of hard to do with clean technology, unlike with software, because of the timelines involved. So industry has to play a stronger role in this industry, in this market. So the Johnson Controls of the world, the Honeywells of the world, they have research agendas. They have development agendas and budgets and staff, and every year they need to solve problems. If they can make those agendas more transparent to the people doing development work, so again, these are aspirational ideas. I believe that we can reduce friction for getting stuff from the bench to the market. So I don't know how this will work, but I've been talking to folks at Johnson Controls and other companies, and there's a lot of interest, and that's where I am. So if you'd like to ask questions, I'm happy to take them.
Kind of answered this already, but just to clarify, so you were talking about the self-sustaining ecosystem. What do you think is the nucleation point? Because obviously, like in San Diego and up north, they had to start from something, and something had to happen for those places to become what they are. So what do you think, like, is it the same thing that will happen here that you think will be the nucleation point for this happening? Or do you think it's Cleantech LA?
Well, it's certainly not Cleantech LA, but so one of the companies, as an example, people talk about Silicon Valley, they talk about HP. HP was the nucleation of Silicon Valley. If you look at Santa Monica now, there is an ecosystem around digital media, and that has clearly started because there have been successful companies that stayed, and folks vested their options, cashed out, left, and started new companies. And there is now, there's this sort of stone falling in the water and ripples happening. One of the companies I started in Pasadena became very successful, and over the course of 10 years, it employed 2,000 people. Those people, many of them, stayed in the Pasadena area, and they ended up also starting companies. So that's I think, what's happening downtown right now with the LA Cleantech Incubator is exciting primarily because, not because of the incubator, although that's exciting. It's in an area that is filled with people. You can speak to this. It's filled with fashion people and art people and so forth, and it's fun to be there. And there are restaurants. So instead of you getting your PhD or finishing your postdoc and going to join a company up north, what we need is for you to go join a company here, to know that there is a company, and there are many, and take a flyer and get one of those spectacular lofts for 2 years, and know that when your company fails, because it will, there will be another one that you can join. And that's go spend some time in San Francisco, you walk into a Starbucks and you walk out with a business plan. It's amazing. It can very easily happen here. So what's the nucleation? I think it's success. I think it's success breeds success. And I think all that we can do is foster the conditions that allow people to do their thing, right? We're going to do the broken windows. We're going to take care of the little stuff. We'll help people meet up. We'll create postdoc workshops and other things.
Other questions? Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you what you meant by data.
So, by the way, nothing that I'm talking about is at all original. Everywhere else in the country, there are areas that are doing this. The difference between them and us is that we're LA, and it's a joke, but it's true. This is a massive area, and we are so underperforming, it's not funny. So, data. There's a project that has been done for the last 3 years in Canada It's literally a business census. They have gone out and they have decided which companies that are clean tech. They've segmented the market. They've reached out to them, and they've done it's a proctological level survey of each company. They have convinced them to give them real data, and they've aggregated the data so that the stuff that's private is not published, and then they've made it available to people to look at, policymakers, investors, whatever. It has been so successful that this year, for the first time, clean tech is now one of the top priorities of the Canadian government in writing. It is one of the, forestry and clean tech. So just putting it on the map is a big deal. But there are other things. For instance, economic development is, there are monies available for economic development. LA has done such a terrible job of getting its share of these funds to develop the workforce, to help them go from one industry to another, et cetera. We just don't know very well what skills are missing, what are being looked for by companies in this area. So we hear a lot from business owners saying it's terrible to start a company here and grow a company here. And it's hard to find people. Well, if we knew, as part of the survey, if we found out what skills are being looked for, what positions are open at companies, and we knew that there is a paucity of CNC operators or welders, we can work with community colleges and state colleges to initiate economic development around that area, right, and address it directly. So data is necessary, and we don't have it. People guess at what clean tech means. So we need to fix that. That's the point.
Is there one more question?
You spoke about the retraining of the managers and bringing in them to help with these problems. So I was wondering, where that training comes from. Are they going to institutions, or where is it physically being given, the training, the retraining? And then also on the flip side, do you take people that already have the training in the clean tech industry and train them in terms of management?
So just one bit of context, and then I'll answer. I've met many entrepreneurs just in the last 2 months in energy, and we have the same conversations. Company failure often happens at the social layer, right? There are reasons that are orthogonal to the value of the technology. The mission of the university has shifted over the years, but it's no longer publish or perish, it's patent or perish, primarily because these are big problems. We need to have solutions, and universities need to make money from this stuff. And everyone complains about tech transfer being effective. We need to help that. So the way we can do it, I think, and there are many people who agree with this is nothing original, is helping form partnerships between the people who are developing the technologies and people who actually understand how to grow a business. And it really is about building trust. And that's not something you can program. So there is a need for those managers, but they exist. To answer your question, it's not being done now. That's the point. Nothing that I'm talking about now is being done from Cleantech LA's perspective. So there is a program at BU that does this. It's an inspiration. I don't think that we want to do exactly that. I believe that we can do it in a different way and make it valuable and address the LA problem specifically. In Boston, it's easy. It's dense and small. LA is dense and gargantuan. And there are people who don't want to go east of the 405. So we can't build programs for them downtown because they'll never go downtown. So we have to build these programs in such a way that we bring experts that actually know about how the utility world works and how to address that market, what Honeywell, Johnson Controls, and GE want, what their divisions want, et cetera. And I think we have all the connections we need to put that kind of curriculum together. And maybe we work with UCLA and USC and Caltech to provide space, but it's not done yet. This is all. Oh, more questions. Chairman Swords, stand up. This man is actually responsible for Cleantech LA existing.
Thank you. So there are a number of electric vehicle companies that have located in Los Angeles. Trexa, BYD, Coda, Miles, and there are a few just south of here down in Orange County. What do you think makes them want to locate in Los Angeles? Why do you think this was an attractive place for them to locate?
So LA is the culture capital of the world. Some argue that Shanghai is now, but I think LA still has a strong role. It's also the largest EV market. Cars last forever here because they don't rust. We don't have salt on the road and all that kind of stuff. So I think, you know, these car companies want to be as close to the market as possible. It's in our interest to encourage them to be here and to form. This is, you know, we're never going to be a biofuels capital because we're too far away from feedstock, and you don't do feedstock here in LA. You do it in the Midwest. But there are a lot of areas that we can focus our attention on, and EVs and EV development and the infrastructure around it is one of those. Did you have a specific thing that you wanted me to say?
Okay.
Yes.
I think we can take one more question, and then we have our final speaker for the night. So here we go. Great.
First off, I wanted to thank you because you obviously are a nice bridge between academia and entrepreneurship, and I really feel that. And I also haven't really introduced myself to you, Michael, but we've communicated by email. And those bridges, I think, are really important. My question to you is, we're one of these early stage companies that are now coming here trying to figure out how to find our way. We just got approached by a Silicon Valley law firm. We've signed with him. He's now trying to get us up to Silicon Valley. I'm a Bruin. My partners and our team are pretty much Bruins. There are a couple Trojans in there, I'll admit. But and looking more and more like we are going to have to maybe move up there, mainly because we're having trouble finding a platform to get our voice out there that is a little bit different than the normal VC routes in here. A lot of the VCs seem to have turned into schools where they want to bring you in and pull funds and mentor you and tell you how they want you to present, things of those natures. And we're having trouble finding platforms to go to people with what we think are very, obviously, like every other entrepreneur, viable ideas, and find, listening, open minds that want to hear that, maybe embrace those types of technologies. Is there any platforms being developed in there? And I know that you have an incubation firm in there, and maybe that is it, where people in LA can go to and have their voice heard outside of just pitching to a VC group, or maybe going to off-channel forms of support. I know that's a broad question, but I was...
So, I don't know the company, I don't know the context, but I'll answer it generally. There are, in fact, this is an example of what I was saying before. There are, in fact, many, there are business plan competitions, there are accelerators, there are clean tech-focused base camps. There are all sorts of things going on. There is the LA Clean Tech Incubator as well, which you have to apply to, and the whole point is to give you alternate routes or standard routes to market. One of the companies that's in the incubator has been talking to Kleiner Perkins about an investment, so it spans the range. And I think we've got to do a better job of publicizing those. And I think we've started. I think it has already been in operation. The hot sheet, signing up for the mailing list is one great way of understanding what's going on in the LA area and all the events and so forth. And I think one of those, as we execute all of the ideas that you've heard tonight and a bunch of others, one of the central parts of this will be making our electronic operations, the website and others, a real go-to destination for people who are interested in things like this. So, and how do I go to the next slide? Okay.
Great. Thanks, Mark.